in the 90s was the boom of the great comic book cartoon. So a lot of the old stories from the 60s and 70s and 80s were retold in cartoon form. So just that flashpoint of reading the books, then having no one to really talk about it with, but enjoying it on my own. And then the cartoons became a big thing. And then I was able to go to other kids and say, oh, you're watching this cartoon. Well, and then I could introduce people to comic books. But like we talked about in episode 1, that arcade culture of finding people with like-minded enjoyments of genre, that's what the comic book store was for me. Going to the comic book store was an event. It was when you can go into a brick and mortar store and talk to people, be recommended. There was no internet, so you would be recommended stories by people. It was a fantastic time. And then to have all of those great stories from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and watch it grow with me, and then this movie slate comes out, and then to be able to experience it all again virtually, this virtual comic book store where we can come together with the people and talk about this stuff before, because now all these people now are being introduced to stories. I read the Infinity Gauntlet saga when it came out, and to be able to talk about that, and then people stay after the credits and like, who's that big purple raisin looking motherfucker? And I'm like, that's
you guys don't know what's coming. Like, oh my god, yes, yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it is this ability to almost in a way pre-read things, right? And I'm a huge fan of, if we go outside comics books for a little bit, but you know, like having read a book and then sometimes seeing the movie of the book, and if it's done well, right, then it gives you a different side, a visual aspect to the thing that you might not have had. I mean, some of them are done fucking terrible, of course, but that's beside the point. Comic books takes that to the next level, because I definitely think we've had more good comic book movies than we've had bad. We've had some stinkers, but we've had some amazing movies that treated the source material with respect and gave us a different side to that. Even if you read the original book, it was still fucking amazing. So, I mean, Infinity Gauntlet that you brought up right now, this is, of course, not, perfectly copied in the movies. Not at all. It's not at all like the original story, but it is enough of a homage to it, or a different take on it, that it is still really good without pissing me as a hardcore fan off, with not liking it.
Yeah, I believe they only even maybe adapted 20% of the actual comic book source material, but I love it. It stands next to it in many parts. It stands above the source material. Yeah. I just think it's fantastic, and I absolutely. And it's great because, and I want to get into your history with this genre as well, and this culture. But like you said, and I feel it from you, and this is something I can't wait to dig into it with you, and this is something that we'll be able to give to the people. And why we're doing an episode on this is because this long time appreciation of this source material allows us to have an insight into maybe what's coming down the line in 2022 as we talk about this slate. But I want to hear your story with this stuff. Tell me.
No, 100%. Just to add on to what you said right now, there's a certain fun with prediction with this as well, where even if you end up being wrong, it is a fantastic conversation to have, just because you start realizing the possibilities here. And in people like Kevin Feige and the other people with the MCU, we've certainly seen their want to be faithful to these and to leave no stone unturned. Without going into deep into this, Guardians of the Galaxy is a really good example of that, of them taking something that is a complete and utter gamble and turning it into, something lovable. But in any case, for me, look, the thing is, my comic story started long before games even, and it's a simple one where I was in the right place at the right time and I lucked out like something like amazing. So my mom earlier in her life devoured books, dude. I mean, she would do a hardback or softback, novel, fiction, whatever. She especially liked like crime fiction, that kind of shit. She would eat these books like 6 days, baby. 4 to 6 days, she'd be done with one. She'd sometimes do 2 in that time, everything like that. She'd read well into the night. And so because these were so expensive to buy them new in Namibia, we often went to these like secondhand bookstores, and very, very especially there was one right around the corner from my house called Uncle Spike's Book Exchange. And this guy, for some reason, had the wisdom to start letting people trade comics in.
Oh,
So I would spend, dude, that was like a library for me, dude, because I couldn't afford them. But I could go sit there, and I was friends with this guy, and he just let me dig through these fucking boxes and read these comics. And they were in tatters, and kids had sometimes cut out pieces of the paper, which would only make me hunt down the originals more, because there was a piece I was missing. Remember, there was no internet, there was nothing like that. So I had to do that. So I was fascinated by this, and this was like when I was 5, 6, 7, 8. This is when this shit started already. So I was obsessed with this place, and that guy eventually, unfortunately, passed away, and his place went out of business and everything like that. But by then, obviously, I'd been buying comics and everything like that. But it always just sticks so close to me, because that was such a weird thing that I'd once gone with my mom to the store, and it became like my favorite fucking thing to do on a Saturday. It's just go sit at this guy's place and just go through these boxes and boxes of comics that have been dropped off there, and that's really where it started. So, and back then, I had no idea of what is the difference between Marvel, what is DC, you know, all of this. Just comics were comics for me, man. And I would often have these thoughts like, why has Superman never really hung out with Spider-Man? Like what's up? Like, why have they never run into each other yet? And, you know, like this kind of stuff. And I just, you know, obviously when you get older and you start realizing, holy shit, it's different universes and, you know, all this stuff. But it was just, yeah, I got lost in those worlds, man. I loved it so much. I would even say, I mean, there's a very strong possibility that I have a bigger fondness for comics than I do for games. And that's fucking crazy.
this was a clip from the Separated at Birth podcast. We do the show live every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where there you can join in the show and submit live questions and comments and have them read on air. Hope to see you there.